Good Friday morning. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off today. Right now on Morning News Now, renewed urgency. A new push by the Biden administration to get teens vaccinated. As the Delta variant of COVID-19 spreads, growing worries about young people, with infection rates for 12 to 20-year-olds rising quickly in Britain. What the Biden administration is doing to inoculate more of America's youth. Supreme survival. For a third time, the highest court in the land rejects a Republican-led effort to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. The Trump-appointed justices who voted to uphold Obama's presidency-defining legislation. Heating up, the record-breaking heat wave slamming upwards of 40 million Americans out west is now entering its seventh day. Now the frightening combination of sky-high temperatures and low humidity is raising concerns about wildfires. We'll tell you what's on the horizon as we enter the weekend. And national recognition. At a jubilant White House ceremony, President Biden signs a landmark new law making Juneteenth a federal holiday, a day to commemorate and celebrate the end of slavery in the U.S. back in 1865. We'll take a closer look at the often overlooked history of America's newest national holiday. Good to have you with us this Friday. The race is on to vaccinate more people against coronavirus, especially as the more contagious and dangerous Delta variant spreads across the country. The White House COVID response team has this warning for Americans yet to get their shot.
So if you're fully vaccinated, you're protected. But if you're unvaccinated, you're at risk of getting seriously ill or spreading the disease to others. This is why we are pushing so hard to get more Americans vaccinated.
This warning is important for young people to hear. In Britain, the Delta variant is hitting those between the ages of 12 and 20 especially hard right now. To stop that from happening here in the U.S., the Biden administration is making a new push to get more shots in the arms of teenagers. And with that, NBC News correspondent Heidi Prisbilla joins us from a vaccination site in D.C. with an exclusive look at this new plan. So Heidi, tell us, how are officials looking to reach younger people?
In fact, Joe, the #1 setting where that Delta variant is spreading in the UK, according to their own data, is in secondary schools. Dr. Fauci has said we cannot let that happen here. And so NBC has gotten exclusive details about what the administration is doing to try and target teens. A lot of it has, unsurprisingly, to do with mama. Targeting mommies through social media, mommy bloggers, going through the American Academy of Pediatrics, camp associations, and a new program that the Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra told us about exclusively.
They just have to make sure that they're hearing the right information. And that's where we come in to try to help. And that's why we hope that this new student corps that we've established of student ambassadors will help us communicate to that population of young people who hasn't yet gotten vaccinated, but we know is approachable.
So as that Delta variant takes hold here, Joe, officials are hoping that they can get more of these teenagers vaccinated, certainly before summer camps kick off and definitely before back to school in the fall.
So, Heidi, we know these teens are online on social media, probably more than most adults, which can expose them to all kinds of misinformation. What misinfo or conspiracies are teens hearing about the vaccine?
You know, I watched the congresswoman who represents the district yesterday on a panel, and even she seemed surprised by what she heard from some of these teens about the disinformation circulating on some of their primary platforms like TikTok. She was sitting next to a young lady named London, a 17-year-old student who has yet to be vaccinated. And here's what she told her. Zombies.
Yeah, zombies.
So what are the, wait, just tell me, what are the big conspiracies then?
Okay, so one conspiracy is that the vaccine is implanting a chip into us, and the government is tracking us. And another one is that the vaccinations will be a start to a zombie apocalypse in the future.
And so, of course, London told us while she is skeptical of these conspiracies, they're not fringe. They're all over a lot of this social media, Joe, that these young kids are looking at. Other students who I talked to said, you know what, it's just not a thing. I talked to a young gentleman named Tishan, who's 14 years old. Well, he was brought in by his grandmother.
Well, with some of those conspiracy theories you mentioned, we just heard on our show yesterday as well. So as surprising as it is something we're hearing a lot of. I want to ask you, the site where you are at is offering the Pfizer vaccine. So kids 12 and older, can go there. Adolescents have only been eligible for more than a month. How many are actually getting the vaccine?
It's a very good question, because the answer is not enough. If you look at the data here in the District of Columbia, you'd see about 15% of teens are fully vaccinated. When you segregate that out by demographic, you'll see, for instance, for Black young teenagers, it's only 4%. And that's why the Congresswoman and these officials on the panel yesterday at Anacostia High School are so concerned. I sat in the gymnasium there for a couple of hours waiting for the rush to start for vaccinating. And eventually I just asked the administrator, how many people come in here? Because it remained empty for most of the time. And she said only a couple dozen a day at this point, Joe. So a very low number considering how many teens have yet to get vaccinated.
Which explains why the administration wants to work so hard to try and change those numbers. All right, Heidi, thanks so much for your report. Appreciate it. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. So, Dr. Azar, let's start with the Delta variant, which is making so many headlines this week. Can you explain, first of all, what makes it more contagious, especially for younger people who may not think they could really get sick from COVID, because early on, younger people really weren't getting that sick?
I know. Good morning, Joe. Well, look, in terms of why it's more contagious, there's always the possibility that it is replicating, faster, or that it's more efficient in terms of locking on and attaching to our cells. I don't think that we have that data yet. But remember, a virus's job is to survive. And the way it does that is by becoming more contagious, not necessarily more deadly, because if it causes more deaths, it's of course going to die off with its host, but also to be able to evade vaccines. So I heard a very interesting term this morning. Public health experts are calling on these variants, quote unquote, scariants, because, we always talk about them like, oh, they're more contagious and they're deadlier and everything like that. The truth is, with the Delta variant, it is more contagious. It probably causes more severe disease. Maybe it's not responding as well in terms of preventing the vaccine being able to prevent mild disease, but it's kind of in the realm of what we've been seeing with the A, the B, and the C variants so far. Definitely something to be concerned about. Vaccine, of course, will work against it, which is why we're urging everybody to get vaccinated, Joe. Scariants.
I'm writing that down to use in the future. So one thing we know that is creating at least some vaccine hesitancy among teens and their parents is the side effect that we've seen in some 300 young Americans, that inflammation of the heart known as myocarditis. A CDC committee is actually meeting today to review the risks connected to the vaccine and this condition. So how worried should parents and teens be about this? What are we learning about it?
Look, Joe, here's what we know so far. The reason that we're concerned is that we are seeing that the incidence of myocarditis is slightly higher than what would be expected as a background rate, number one. And number two, there does appear to be a temporal relationship to the vaccine. That is, it seems to be happening about 4 days after the second shot. So intuitively and logically, one might assume that there is a link there. What I'm hoping to hear today is, can we get any more information, certainly about the individuals who were affected? Is there any reason or ability to be able to identify perhaps a biomarker or something in the patients that can be flagged as a risk factor that we can better perhaps, educate or give guidance to parents when it comes to vaccinating their kids? I think at the end of the day, Joe, what we're going to hear is that for the vast majority of people, the benefit will far outweigh that risk. But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's really going to require, informed consent with parents before they get their kids vaccinated, Joe.
All right, we talk about vaccines a lot for good reason, but I do also want to talk about treatments. The Biden administration is going to invest more than $3 billion to develop antiviral pills to try and treat the virus. Here's what Dr. Anthony Fauci said about the plan yesterday.
This program is going to bring together leading scientists from academia as well as industry to accelerate the development of new antivirals. And as I mentioned, it's also going to target other viruses of pandemic potential.
So, Dr. Azar, how do these pills work and how might they help in the battle against the virus?
Well, let's think about it this way, Joe. How do we treat COVID-19 right now? We have the antiviral therapy remdesivir, which is intravenous, has to be given in the hospital. We have monoclonal antibodies, which essentially give you the immune response that your body is not able to mount on its own. We know how to treat the cytokine storm, which is that robust inflammatory response that comes later, and we vaccinate. And vaccination will still represent sort of the centerpiece or the cornerstone of battling the pandemic, just to prevent infection overall. But essentially, the antivirals work by inhibiting viral replication. It's the same way that Tamiflu works when you get the flu. The great thing about this is that it doesn't need to be given in the hospital when you're already sick by IV. This is something that you would ostensibly, theoretically take at the first time that you notice that you're positive with that PCR swab. You take this pill and it will inhibit and lower the amount of virus in your body, making you less sick, potentially keeping you out of the hospital, maybe preventing transmission. This is amazing. Look, if we can get a vaccine to market in a year, we have the same sort of force behind this now with private entities and public health agencies and great scientific minds. I think it's very plausible that in 1 year we will be talking about a pill, again, very similar to Tamiflu, that you can take if you test positive for COVID-19.
All the tools we need to battle this pandemic. Dr. Azar, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Let's get a check on your morning news now weather. Right now, more than 45 million people are under a heat advisory in the West as temperatures continue to shatter records. Officials in California and Texas are asking people to conserve energy by limiting appliance use, setting air conditioning systems to 78 degrees or higher. On top of that, firefighters are warning of the increased wildfire risk, and several states are already reporting outbreaks this week. So Bill Cairns is here to kind of talk about what's happening out there and all these dangers that are being posed.
Yeah, and when we can finally, turn the corner on this heat wave, it looks like we have another couple of days. It's not going to abruptly end. It's just going to slowly kind of trickle cooler and cooler as we go throughout the weekend. So yesterday, by the way, at 8 a.m., Tucson, Arizona hit 100 degrees. That was the second earliest in their history that they've ever hit 100 degrees early in the morning. So that's one of the signs of a really prolonged epic heat wave is how warm it stays at night. So we're still at 94 degrees right now, early in the morning in Phoenix and in Vegas. So those areas are going to be very hot once again today when you're starting off that warm. Yesterday, Omaha was up to 106 degrees. It was Omaha's warmest June day in 68 years. So this had been a pretty epic heat wave, not just for the Southwest, but for Montana earlier this week and now for the Central Plains. So again, the number of people, we're into the 40 million range for number of people that are under heat warnings right now. Today, easily breaking their record in Phoenix, Lake Havasu. Vegas should be probably a couple degrees short of their record. After a brief break, the heat's returned to Salt Lake City. You'll approach your record high today. And also Sacramento, you should break your record for, I think, the third straight day. And as far as the tropics go, this will be one of the other stories. We have tropical storm warnings for New Orleans. I am not concerned with the winds with this storm system. It is a rain event and with flash flooding event as we go throughout the weekend. There's the path of the storm. Again, we're not worried about an eye or anything else. It's a flood threat, Joe. So as we go throughout the weekend, flash flood watches from New Orleans to Atlanta, and we do think we have the possibility of up to a foot of rain. And if you've been following the weather over the spring, this has been an area that's been soaked all spring long. So we're very concerned with flash flooding.
Yeah, they don't want any more rain, but the West could use the rain right now. So, all right. Bill, thanks so much. Appreciate it. The Supreme Court has spared Obamacare again. In a 7-2 decision, the court rejected a Republican-led state push to overturn the decade-old health care overhaul. NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams takes a closer look at the decision.
The ruling is a victory for Angela Eilers of Southern California. She worries what would happen without Obamacare to her daughter, who's twice had heart surgery.
What happens next? What will happen to her coverage? What happens not just immediately, but in long term?
The Supreme Court today spared President Obama's health care law, the third time the court rejected a Republican challenge. The vote this time 7-2, with Justices Samuel Alito and Neil Gorsuch dissenting. Clarence Thomas, who voted against Obamacare twice before, was in the majority this time. So was Amy Coney Barrett, who Democrats considered a grave threat to the law during her confirmation. Obamacare originally required nearly all Americans to get health insurance, the individual mandate, or pay an income tax penalty. In 2012, the Supreme Court upheld the law as a legitimate use of Congress's taxing power. Then a Republican-led Congress set the tax penalty at zero. So 18 red states, led by Texas, sued, saying what's left is just an unconstitutional mandate. But today's ruling by Justice Stephen Breyer didn't weigh in on the larger question, instead saying the challengers have no legal standing to sue because the law no longer requires people to do anything, so they're not harmed by it. And in rejecting this one, the court suggested similar lawsuits would also fail.
The Supreme Court has slammed the door finally shut on all of the major legal challenges to Obamacare. Now it's just going to be nitpicking about the details of thousands of little provisions.
President Biden called the ruling, quote, a major victory for all Americans benefiting from this groundbreaking and life-changing law. The court also ruled unanimously in favor of a Catholic charity that refuses to place foster children in the homes of same-sex parents because that would violate its religious beliefs. But this is a narrow ruling. The court did not say that claims of religious freedom always trump laws against discrimination, Joe.
Thank you, Pete. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor and current NBC News legal analyst Cynthia Oxney to walk us through this ruling. Cynthia, good to see you. So first, let's establish some of the background on this ruling for people who aren't following it super closely. We know 18 states led by Texas initially filed a lawsuit arguing that the Affordable Care Act's individual mandate harmed Americans. That's the provision that requires nearly all Americans to get health insurance. So what in the end influenced the court's decision to uphold the law this time around?
Well, when the court upheld the mandate, the Republicans outsmarted themselves and then reduced the mandate to zero. That meant that it didn't. What the Supreme Court said yesterday was, well, if the mandate is zero, it doesn't really affect anybody who doesn't want to enforce the law. So you didn't have a concrete interest in the outcome. You didn't have an injury. And that means, well, let me just say this, that's typical. What happens is the Supreme Court tries to go to the most narrow way and not have to decide the big issues. So here they went to the most narrow thing they could do to gather the most justices with different opinions about the law and say, well, since there's no standing, we don't have to rule on the law at all. And that keeps them from having to make decisions on big issues. They did that in this case, and they also did that in the discrimination case that Pete mentioned earlier.
Now, Cynthia, the ruling came down to a 7-2 vote, so it wasn't super close. And Justices Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh, both appointed by former President Trump, did side with the majority. And then Trump's other Supreme Court pick, Neil Gorsuch, dissented. What do you make of that split? Should we read anything into that?
Yeah, I think it's an important split. And that is that Chief Justice Roberts is really consolidating this court and doing everything he can to bring consensus to the court so that it isn't a political court. Remember, watch the transition that's happened here. When we first looked at the Supreme Court looking at the ACA, the ruling was very close. It was 5-4, and then he slowly brought it into 6-3, and now it's at 7-2. He's consolidating people, and the way he's doing that is stepping back and taking the farthest away decision that he can to bring in the most amount of justices, and he's doing it very effectively. I mean, the fact that Thomas ruled with the majority tells you all you need to know about his ability to bring people together.
All right. Interesting perspective. Cynthia Oxney, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The water that comes out of your tap is something that many of us take for granted, but millions of Americans are currently living without it. As part of NBC's week-long series, America the Vulnerable, NBC's Stephanie Gosk visits a town in West Virginia where getting clean water is an everyday struggle.
In McDowell County, West Virginia, where coal was once king, there are lots of mountain springs. What makes this one so good is Berlin Cooper can drive right up to it. He fills these jugs once or twice a week because back at home, their well has gone bad.
What does it smell like? Rotten eggs. Really? Mm-hmm. And that's the water that's coming out of your well? It's water coming out of my well. Yeah.
The Coopers suspect nearby natural gas drilling.
That's the problem. There's no good water.
Up on Bradshaw Mountain, the Staceys have to rely on water from the sky. Burl built this system himself.
You're dependent on the rain.
Yeah.
And it doesn't rain all the time.
No, we don't.
They can't drink it, so they also buy bottled.
How much do you end up paying for water a month? Do you know?
I'd say you get average about $100.
$100 a month.
Yeah.
Is that money that you guys have?
No, not really.
About a mile up the hill is where the public water ends.
Why did they have to stop right here and not go down the road if there are people who live down the road?
It was my understanding they run out of funding.
No more money.
No more money.
Cody Estep is the McDowell County Commissioner, born and raised on this mountain.
Would you say people are worrying about water here on a daily basis?
Yes, ma'am, I would. Yes. There's lots of people in this country that does not know what it is, that takes it for granted to go over to their spigot and turn that water on. You never miss the water till the well goes dry.
Cody, if they invited you to Capitol Hill, what would you tell Congress about your situation here?
I would have to just say politely, hey, look, what day can you all come down in southern McDowell County? We need a tour bus to bring a whole bunch of you people down there.
Just bring them in.
And plan on staying now.
The underlying causes of the water challenges here, fueled by economic decline, may be unique, but the struggle is not. At least 2.2 million Americans live without basic access to safe drinking water and sanitation.
We invest hundreds of millions of dollars solving this problem for people in countries halfway around the world. But the fact that we're not putting that same level of intention into solving this problem in our own backyard is, I think, shameful.
George McGraw's organization Dig Deep is one of the only nonprofits dedicated entirely to domestic water infrastructure. Among their projects, helping the homeowners in Kyle Bottom connect to a new system built by the public utility.
What was the water situation when you were a kid here in this house?
We didn't have the problem when we was growing up. Then I don't know what happened all of a sudden. I guess the pipes started corroding, crumbling, not replaced.
Elizabeth Mason spent the whole pandemic without reliable, clean water. Soon, she is going to get it.
Imagine for a moment that day when your pipes get turned on and you're able to turn that faucet on. What's it going to feel like?
Yay, excitement.
Because when you don't have water, water is everything. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, McDowell County, West Virginia.
Coming up, Iranians are heading to the polls today to choose their next president. 3 of the 4 candidates are seen as anti-Western hardliners. So what could that mean for the future of nuclear talks with the U.S.? A live report from Tehran next. Iranians are voting for their next president today. 3 of the 4 candidates are considered to be anti-Western hardliners. That includes the frontrunner, who's the conservative head of the judiciary and a protege of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. NBC News correspondent Ali Arouzi joins us now from Tehran. So, Ali, despite all that's on the table today, voter turnout, I understand, is expected to be low. Tell us more about why that is and what we can expect from Iran in the short term right after this election.
Hi, good morning, Joe. That's right. Voter turnout was expected to be low, and it's fulfilled that prophecy. If you look behind me right now, this is a place called Hosseini Ershad. This is the main polling station, or one of the main polling stations in Iran. On past elections I've covered, the queue runs all the way down the street and round the block. People have to wait hours before they can vote. As you can see, it's pretty much empty behind me, and there's been very little activity all morning. And the reason for this is that it's been a very tumultuous 4 years for the Iranian people. There's been harsh economic U.S. sanctions. The economy has been mismanaged. We've seen hyperinflation, assassination, protests over gas prices. The COVID pandemic has been grossly mishandled. So there was always going to be a lot of voter apathy in these elections. There's not a lot of enthusiasm around the ballot boxes, and that has come as no surprise. It would have actually been a big surprise if there was a large voter turnout here. So what does this mean for the country? It means that this government doesn't have the legitimacy that they always like to have, and they're going to have to try and work very hard to win some popularity back in this country, and the only way they can do that is trying to revive the economy.
Ali, let's talk a little bit about the favorite, the hardline favorite. His name is Ebrahim Raisi. What are the chances of a more moderate rival winning at this point?
Well, as I pointed out to you, we're in Tehran, and if a moderate candidate is going to garner a lot of votes to become president, they need a big turnout in Tehran, and that's not looking like it's going to happen. In the smaller towns and villages, people usually vote conservative. In the bigger cities, they vote for a moderate, and the turnout has just been very low. Now, maybe when the weather cools down a bit, it's 112 degrees here right now. Maybe when the weather cools down this evening, people will come out, but it's unlikely.
And Ali, how could this election then outcome affect nuclear deal talks down the road?
Well, look, the guy that's favorite to win, Ebrahim Raisi, is a very austere man. He's a very hard-line man. He makes no secret about being very anti-U.S., but that doesn't mean that they don't want to return to the JCPOA. Look, most officials in this country know it, whether they like it or not. To revive the economy, they need to go back to the JCPOA, and that's probably what Raisi is going to do. Now, the negotiating tactics may differ, and the process may take longer, but he's made it very clear that he too wants to return to the deal.
Ali Arouzi in Tehran. Ali, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Well, let's take a look at what else is making news around the world this morning. NBC News reporter Matthew Bodner joins us from Moscow. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Well, let's kick things off today in Israel, where the Israeli military actually yesterday conducted its second airstrike on the Gaza Strip this week. It's also the second time they've done this since that shaky ceasefire went into effect in Gaza last month. Now, so far, there have been no reported casualties, but this definitely kind of raises concern about a resumption of hostilities in the Gaza Strip, so we're going to have to keep a close eye on that one. Moving over now to North Korea, we saw leader Kim Jong-un make what are actually his first direct comments about the Biden administration, saying that his country needs to prepare for both dialogue and confrontation with the United States, so he really leaned in heavily to the confrontation side of that. And this all comes despite the Biden administration having already extended kind of an olive branch, trying to establish diplomatic dialogue with North Korea. And let's wrap this up in Japan, where a wild bear went on the loose. I think rampage is a fair description of what happened there in the city of Sapporo. This bear ran around for about 4 hours, making its way past a checkpoint onto a Japanese Defense Force base, hopping a fence to an airport and delaying flights. And after several hours, the bear was put down. That's what we got for you guys today.
Hey, Matt, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Coming up, with Juneteenth now a federal holiday, many Black Americans are taking some time to reflect on their roots. How one East Coast university is helping students connect with their ancestors. That's next. My old neighborhood in Hollywood is about to shine even brighter. The 2022 Hollywood Walk of Fame honorees have been announced. 38 stars will be added for their contributions to TV, film, music, theater, radio, and sports. New honorees include Macaulay Culkin, Selma Hayek, and Regina King. Film legend Carrie Fisher and the late rapper Nipsey Hussle will be given posthumous stars. And 2 NBC greats will be honored on the Walk of Fame as well. Today's show's beloved former host Kathy Lee Gifford and SNL's longest-running cast member Kenan Thompson. Congratulations are in order for every one of those nominees. Well, tomorrow is Juneteenth, America's newest federal holiday, which commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S. The day's roots go back to Galveston, Texas, where a mural now honors the last slaves to be freed. NBC News Now anchor Morgan Radford takes us there.
This year, Reginald Adams wanted to do something special for Juneteenth.
It's absolutely critical that these moments in time are spoken out loud.
He created a mural to honor the day the last American slaves were freed more than 150 years ago, right here in Galveston, Texas.
Why now? Why is the message of this mural so important to share?
I say, why not now? For decades, people even in Galveston didn't even know about the history of their own city.
He even created an interactive digital code that visitors can scan to learn more.
We really looked at this project as an outdoor classroom.
And got students involved in the project.
Even somebody who doesn't know what Juneteenth is sees this, so they're like, wow, what is this?
Many here say now is the time to honor a history too often overlooked.
enslaved people would have.
Samuel Collins is a historian with Galveston's Juneteenth Project.
Where are we right now?
We're here at Pier 21, where many enslaved Africans would have arrived here in Galveston.
He says that on June 19th, 1865, mostly black Union soldiers rode into Texas to tell slaveholders they had to respect the Emancipation Proclamation signed 2 years earlier.
If the Union soldiers and the United States colored troops had not arrived here in Galveston, I don't think they would have enforced it till this day.
Which is why residents here say this history still matters.
What do you hope that people take away when they walk by and see this work of art?
I want people to be inspired and hopefully learn something that they didn't know before they saw the work of art.
A work of art honoring the past. Morgan Radford, NBC News, Galveston, Texas.
For many Black Americans, Juneteenth is a holiday to celebrate freedom, but it's also a time to reflect and ask questions. Stay tuned. Reporter Maya Eaglin shares her own personal journey and shows us how one university is helping some discover their roots.
Growing up in Maryland, I didn't ask a lot of questions about my family history. I knew we all loved each other. Our culture was a bit of a melting pot, but we identified as Black. We had barbecues, family celebrations blasting Stevie Wonder, and summers in Louisiana with family. But now I do have a lot of questions about my ancestors. How did we end up in Louisiana? Why do we have a farm? When were we given our Creole identity?
272 people out of about 1,000 total who had been owned by Georgetown University and the Maryland Jesuits were sold all at once and all together to 3 sugar plantations in southern Louisiana to rescue Georgetown from bankruptcy.
Richard Cellini, a Georgetown alum, started the Georgetown Memory Project in 2015.
Shouldering responsibility for alma mater's role in the slave trade.
They used genealogy to identify descendants of the GU 272, and so far they've been able to find thousands.
If your family's Black or mixed race, if your family also has a connection to the Roman Catholic faith, and finally a connection to certain geographic locations, either in southern Maryland or in southern Louisiana. It's kind of amazing. Like if somebody can check 2, 3, or 4 of those boxes, suddenly you go, bing, this person is almost certainly a descendant of the GU 272.
Not too long ago, I found my own connection. Doing some research, I was able to find a slave named Harriet Eaglin, who was sent down to Louisiana at the age of 6 back in 1838. The moment I saw her name, my heart sunk.
What can you tell me about the Eaglin family?
First of all, the Eaglin name is not a common one. The Eaglins actually were a very well-known family of Black people who were enslaved by the Maryland Jesuits.
When you were saying checking off those boxes, I felt like each one in my head, my family's from Louisiana, they are historically Catholic, they are in that location that you're talking about. And it's weird to say that that's an exciting thing to hear because, you know, it's a connection to slavery, but it does bring, you know, a sense of identity back.
That family legacy is yours, and nobody can ever take it away from you.
Richard says one of the goals of linking these families to their history is to bring them one step closer to reparations.
Reparations is an acknowledgement of harm, not just in an emotional sense, but in a way that has tangible cause and loss, and returning that loss to the communities to which it was done.
Niall is student body president at Georgetown and an activist for the descendants of the GU 272. The school made headlines in 2019 when students voted for a referendum, or new measure, that would raise tuition by $27.20 to create a fund for descendants of the enslaved GU 272.
What Georgetown basically communicated is the referendum is a cute thought, but we're going to be moving forward with some of our own initiatives.
If the greater institution is unwilling to make action, what do your personal platitudes mean?
So what has Georgetown done for these descendants?
I think the only meaningful, tangible policy that's been put in place is if you are a descendant and you're applying to any of the schools, undergraduate to graduate, then you are legacy status, which is kind of just a boost in the admissions process.
Georgetown tells NBC it's established a $400,000 a year fund for community-based projects that benefit the descendant community, and also plans to educate incoming students about its history. Students at Brown, Harvard, and the University of Chicago are also pushing for reparations. And Virginia Theological Seminary has actually started giving direct payments to descendants of people enslaved at the seminary, all the way through those who worked during Jim Crow. And as for me, I'm still learning about my family history. But I have so much pride in knowing that I'm getting closer to my ancestors each day.
Coming up, cancel culture. We hear about it almost daily. Another celebrity or musician getting canceled for an old social media post. But how are students growing up in a digital world navigating the permanent nature of social media? We'll investigate next. Once it's on the internet, there is no going back. Celebrities like Chrissy Teigen and Kevin Hart learned that lesson when some of their old posts and comments were unearthed, sparking backlash. As NBC News business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent reports, some in Generation Z are taking a different approach when it comes to social media.
Getting canceled is part of the new normal online, like model Chrissy Teigen, who recently apologized for past horrible tweets and direct messages, attacking then-teenager Courtney Stodden and others. Old social media posts have become fodder for angry users to pounce.
I was introduced to technology at a very, very young age before I even understood what certain things meant.
Kaylin Jackson is an aspiring lawyer, Kendrick Johnson Jr. an engineering undergrad, Taylor Harris is a future teacher, and Naomi Delkamiller is a high school senior. They're all playing it safe to protect their careers.
When you're preparing to post something, how much are you thinking about the future or maybe a job down the line?
I believe it's always in the back of my mind. When I tweet something, I'm always thinking, what effect could this have down the line?
As a Black woman, you definitely have to be extremely mindful because the world could literally tear you apart off of one little thing that you do wrong.
Do you think your generation is more forgiving than the rest of us?
I wouldn't say forgiving. I would say understanding, because when a generation has grown up online together, we're the ones who have witnessed the summer of 2020 and the pandemic and how that literally transformed, in my opinion, what social media was used for, because it was no longer just posting pictures with friends. There was political activism on every single corner of the internet and social media.
For anxious parents, experts recommend talking about the potential pitfalls early.
One of the messages that parents and educators need to give to teenagers and young people in general is that if you post it, you can expect to see it later. What you put up there oftentimes is permanent, so you have to think before you post. It can be tough to talk with your teenager about these issues, but the sooner you start talking with them, the better.
Taking a page from these students' playbook.
So we're just very, very mindful because people are holding us to a higher standard.
Amazon Prime Day is fast approaching. For those of you looking to bag a bargain, this year's shopping bonanza starts on Monday after last year's event was delayed because of the pandemic. NBC News consumer correspondent Vicki Nguyen has more on that, plus free snacks from Instacart and a cool gift for the gamer in your life in this week's Good to Know.
Hey, good morning. Do you or someone you know still need a reason to get vaccinated? Instacart is the latest company to team up with the White House to try and get more Americans vaccinated by July 4th. The online grocery platform announced their Get Vaxxed for Snacks sweepstakes. 200 vaccinated Americans can win a $500 Instacart gift card. You enter to win on Instacart's website by June 30th. You know, I never met a Dorito I didn't like. Exciting news for that gamer in your life. Microsoft is releasing a mini fridge that looks just like an Xbox console. So the next time you're gaming, you don't have to walk too far to grab that snack. The fridge will be released right before the holidays. Speaking of holidays, Amazon is trying to make Prime Day into a retail holiday, and it's sparking a battle of sorts kicking off this weekend. To compete with Amazon's Prime event on Monday, Target and Walmart announced their own big savings events starting Sunday. From summer fashion to kitchen appliances, there will be major deals, but retail experts say you might find the deepest discounts on tech items like TVs and headphones. So how can you make sure you're getting a good deal? First, familiarize yourself with the retailer's website or app, then make a list before the sales begin with prices, and don't settle for the price that you see. Always check the competition to see if that item can be found cheaper. And remember, if you are looking to purchase a big ticket item like a TV or some furniture, you can save on shipping by selecting in-store pickup. Have a great weekend and happy shopping. For News Now, I'm Vicki Nguyen, and that's good to know.
And now it's time for your CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you. And CNBC's Bertha Coombs is with us this morning. Bertha, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Let's call this more good news to know, or maybe not so good news. Carnival says a data breach in March may have exposed customers and employees' personal information on Carnival, Holland America, and Princess Cruises. Company says outsiders may have gained access to Social Security, passport numbers, birth dates, addresses, and health information. That's a whole lot of information. Carnival isn't saying how many people may have been affected, but says it has notified them and it has been working with a cybersecurity firm. Carnival was hit twice last year by ransomware attacks. Meantime, Honda is ending production of its hydrogen fuel cell and hybrid Clarity model this summer. Autoblog reports the decision is due to weak demand and Honda's new focus on electric vehicles. The Clarity struggled from the get-go with a high price tag of $71,000 and a lack of hydrogen refueling stations. Honda says it's going to continue to provide support for the foreseeable future. And Mattel is jumping on the NFT bandwagon. The toy maker is auctioning off non-fungible tokens of its iconic Hot Wheels cars starting June 22nd on its Mattel Creations site. NFTs are a unique digital asset that rely on the same technology used for Bitcoin, known as blockchain. Bids on the Hot Wheels NFT Garage series start at 9 cents. Mattel will launch more NFTs of its famous brands, which of course include Barbie, later this year. Although I've got to tell you, Joe, I don't think you should get in on this for a Father's Day gift.
No,
that would tangible.
That would not work in my family at all. That would take a lot of explaining. Yes. My dad still has a flip phone. So there you go. All right. Thank you, Bertha. And happy Father's Day, Dad. All right. Coming up, Father's Day is this Sunday, a special time to appreciate the men who helped raise us. Our own Craig Melvin is out with a new book exploring the complex relationship with his father. Their story next. Our friend and colleague Craig Melvin is celebrating Father's Day in a very personal way this year. His new book, Pops, out now, explores Craig's relationship with his father, touching on themes of forgiveness and healing. He sat down with other well-known Today dads to discuss the ins and outs of fatherhood.
There's something remarkable about the bond between a father and his son, but for some guys, the path there can be a windy one.
The first line of your book, yes, man. You remember the opening line?
Yeah, he was born in a West Virginia prison.
That's how the book opens.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now that I'm a dad, sharing the story of my own father felt like something I needed to do. It's a story of resilience, a story of overcoming. It's a story of when there's someone that you love, you don't write them off.
What prompted it? Because it's a pretty honest, raw look at a situation that a lot of people might not be willing to share.
It was cheaper than therapy during the pandemic. It was a couple of things. I mean, when I started doing this series for the show on dads, I started to meet a lot of guys like us who were extraordinary in terms of the way they parent, but otherwise ordinary folks. And I think that led me to start to really look at the relationship I have with my dad. We've come a long way, but growing up, it was hard. Growing up in Columbia, South Carolina, my mom, Betty Jo, was a constant presence for my brother Ryan and me, showering us with love and attention. We never doubted that our father Lawrence loved us too, but he worked the overnight shift at the Postal Service and he drank.
Was he around much?
Yeah, I mean, he was there. He was there physically, but when he worked third shift, which didn't help, obviously. He was sleeping during the day, working at night. The older we got, the worse the drinking got. And by the time I left for college, we were, almost estranged in some ways.
He was a black man in the South that at a tough time, a different time.
Yes. He, and this is something I found out during the course of the book. My dad didn't know who his father was until he was almost a teenager. And I think it's wholly unrealistic to expect someone to be something that they haven't seen.
Right.
So my dad didn't, he didn't have a dad. And so he did, exponentially better than his father had done. After decades of struggling with alcohol, in 2018, my family staged an intervention. Dad agreed to enter a rehab facility in Georgia. I'll never forget my first visit there. And he gives me this hug, and I'm crying. He's crying. He gives me this letter that he's written. 40 years, my dad's never written me a letter, but he's written me this letter. And we sat, and we had breakfast. And it was just, it's one of those, I know on my deathbed, I'll remember that day. And in that moment, I knew it had worked. Everything changed between us. And after years of strife, we forged a real connection.
What is your relationship with him now?
It's the best it's ever been. He'll call now, and just random, middle of the day, hey, just come check on you.
Has he read the book?
Oh, he was the first person that read it.
What did he say about it?
It's probably the most nervous I've been, minus when I proposed to my wife. He said, it's all there. It's good. It's good. Yeah. That was it. That's all he said. My father's struggle and his resilience shaped me as a dad. I consider it the luckiest role I've ever had.
And I've seen you as a parent, as a dad. You're a terrific dad. How did you make the jump?
Fortunately, along the way, I've always had men in my life who I could look at and emulate their behavior personally, professionally, like you two. I consider both of you mentors. You for different reasons than Carson.
Age.
Yeah, longevity.
Yes.
Although, hell, I guess the same could be said for you.
Maybe.
Carson Daly's been in the game a long time.
I have 4 kids.
I've heard you talk about the relationship you had with your dad.
Right.
You had sounds like a pretty solid relationship with your dad.
Yeah.
I have one now. I'm thankful for it now. Right. I wish I'd had it, 20 years ago, but what can you do? If there's anything I've learned, it's that sometimes you can make up for lost time. And seeing my own dad dote over his grandkids, there's really nothing better. We went to Dell's soccer game. He's on the sideline. He's coaching the team. He was that into it. First 30 seconds of the game, my son hadn't scored all season. First 30 seconds of the game, dribble, 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 shoot, score. Having him experience that in terms of our relationship right now, it's just, I'm so thankful for it.
I see these pictures of your dad with your kids. And it makes me smile. I think about it now, and what a great gift.
It's the greatest gift, Al.
Craig, Al, and many of our other NBC News dads have spent the last 15 months covering some pretty emotional stories, the daily realities impacting Americans across the country. So we asked them to pen a letter to their own kids this Father's Day to explain how they're coping with it all. Here's what they had to say.
To Courtney, Leela, and Nick.
To my girls, Katrina and Sabrina.
There were so many days and nights while covering a story about the pandemic or protests about race and policing where I felt down and anxious. Your smile, spirits, curiosity about what was happening around us lifted me.
And my job reporting on the pandemic was putting me into contact with too many different people. Even though it was difficult, it was safer for us to separate for a while. Those months apart were the hardest of my life for sure. I honestly hope you don't remember, but the 3 of you stayed strong with your mom, and you relied on each other.
When you think about this time, I hope it reminds you how fortunate we are as a family, how important it is that we cherish our loved ones, and how we must always do everything we can to take care of other people.
Our family is committed to service, and seeing you carrying on that tradition brings me such joy. It's not just what you do during your life, but the people you touch by doing it.
I could not be prouder of each of you for the amazing human beings you have become.
My own boys are now grown men, and while they occasionally take advice from me, this letter is for my 2- and 3-year-old grandsons. By the time you're both able to read and understand this, the world around you will have changed in dozens of ways. My years as a news person have taught me these things I want to share with you. We are far more resilient than we know. We managed to find our way out of the dark, and while bad often writes the headlines of the day, good ultimately writes the full course of history.
Thank you for being strong, for being loving, and for adapting to our new world.
I want you both to know how lucky I am to be your dad.
I love you, Dad.
Love you both, to the moon and back. Love, Daddy.
Love, Papi.
Love always, Dad.
Love, Dad.
Love, your granddude. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.